This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Wolves 0, Liverpool 1. Diogo Jota back in familiar surroundings as the Reds see off Wolves. Welcome to the Debrief Live here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Clarke. He's Matt Addison as we bring you immediate reaction to the Reds win at Molineux. Matt, no other place to start tonight, I don't think, other than sending our best wishes to Rui Patricio after he was stretchered off late on following that clash with Conor Coady. And as I say, horrible scenes at the end, but importantly for Liverpool tonight, they got the win.
Yeah, of course, first and foremost, your thoughts go out to him. It didn't look like a nice clash. Obviously, Sky chose not to show any replays of it, which, fingers crossed, it's not as bad as it looked. We've seen, obviously, similar things at certain points in the past, and, fingers crossed it's nothing long-term for him. But, yeah, in terms of the stuff that we can analyse and get into and dig into, I think it was an important 3 points for Liverpool. I think they were probably unfortunate not to score more goals, but also fortunate a little bit not to have conceded. I think they probably could have conceded a penalty very early on in that game. It was a slightly strange decision from Addison to come out and clatter into the Wolves player. But yeah, overall, I thought Liverpool did just about edge it. I think there was a couple of decent performances. It wasn't vintage, but Liverpool just had to get the 3 points. And like I say, I think they're slightly fortunate that Wolves are maybe a pale imitation of the side that they have been in previous seasons. But yeah, well, you can only beat what's in front of you, and that's what Liverpool have done tonight.
Who were you said there were a number of players who played quite well tonight. Who were your standout performers for Liverpool?
I think the two centre-backs is the big positive. I mean, it's obviously you expect maybe a little bit more from one or two of the other players, but I thought those two probably had, I think you could argue for both of them, their best game so far. I think Nat Phillips doesn't do anything spectacular necessarily. He doesn't put in a performance where you're really sort of surprised by anything, but he just sort of does the basics, and I thought he did that tonight. I think Wolves have obviously got a couple of decent tricky attackers, and I think that the two centre-backs did stand up well. There was a couple of bits of distribution and things that should have been a little bit better, where they put themselves under a little bit of pressure, but I thought, relative to what we expect of Phillips and Ozan Kabak as well, I think, it was relatively good from those two. And I think Trent Alexander-Arnold as well deserves to be picked out. I think he was excellent against Pedro Neto. He's, a huge threat for Wolves, their best player by probably some distance this season so far. So I think, defensively he did okay. There was obviously not a huge amount that he did going forward, but I think to keep Pedro Neto as quiet as what Trent did tonight was a bit of a positive for Liverpool as well. So it wasn't vintage, but I thought those three defensively at least did okay.
Do keep your comments coming here on YouTube. We'll try and get as many of them on screen as possible. I think I'm right in saying, Matt, 3 starts for Kabak and Phillips as a partnership, 3 clean sheets now for Liverpool. Do you say it's certainly something to build on? And I know obviously Kabak's got this option to buy, but Nat Phillips as well, both of them, I suppose, auditioning for the rest of what could be their Liverpool careers, I suppose, because we know Gomez, Matip and Van Dijk will be back for the start of next season. And well, these two certainly trying to do as much as they can to convince Jurgen Klopp they've got a long-term future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think particularly for Kabak, obviously, there's that option. If Liverpool were absolutely convinced on him, they would have just bought him outright in January. The fact that they went with a loan deal, took him through to the summer, it is very much, as you say, an audition for him. So I think it's a bit of pressure on his shoulders to step up and do something in very difficult circumstances, obviously. If he was alongside Virgil van Dijk for the remainder of this season, I think we'd see a much better version of him. So it's not the easiest situation, we know that, but I think, again, it was another positive step forward for him. And Phillips as well, we found out last week that his contract doesn't end at the end of this season. He's actually got another couple of years on that. So potentially even he, if he can continue to put in performances like he's done tonight, look, he's not going to be playing every week as he is at the moment next season. As soon as those 3 players come back, probably Liverpool will go out and buy one more in the summer, whether that's Kabak, whether that's somebody else. You'd imagine that Nat Phillips would probably have to settle for being 5th choice, and then you've got sort of youngsters to sort of put into that mix as well. So it'd be interesting to see what he wants to do, whether he wants to stay at Liverpool, maybe off the back of these performances. He might earn himself a move maybe somewhere else in the Premier League. But yeah, for both of them, it's an important few weeks, I think, and it was a solid start. I don't think Wolves particularly offered a huge threat. I don't think they were the best team by any stretch that Liverpool will face between now and the end of this season in terms of that attacking threat. But look, as I said before, you can only beat what's in front of you. And I think Kabak and Phillips both stood up and, as you say, have kept another clean sheet. So you can't really complain too much of that.
What about the top end of the pitch then? There were chances on target in short supply for Liverpool tonight, but Diogo Jota got the first of them on target, got back on the goal trail for the Reds as well since coming back from injury, and good to just see that dynamism that he brings to that sort of trio at the top end of the pitch.
Yeah, he gives you exactly what we thought he was going to give you once he came back from injury. It's an injection of pace, creativity, goals, just freshening things up. Roberto Firmino obviously wasn't with the team tonight, not back from his injury. So, you need somebody else to step up. And even when Firmino has been playing, he's not been scoring. He's not been as dynamic as what we've seen from Jota. And look, there's been better performances. There's no doubt about that from Jota this season. But I thought tonight he was good. Obviously, going back to his former club just gives Liverpool something extra, gives them a bit of a goal threat. There's been far too many occasions in this calendar year where Liverpool haven't really looked like scoring and maybe haven't got the first goal. But the fact that Jota is on the pitch just gives you that extra sort of incentive and sort of feeling that they are going to, go a goal in front. And, when you're talking about games being won by the odd goal, Liverpool not scoring many, but not particularly conceding too many at this moment in time, it's always important to get that first goal. And that's not something that they've been able to do really over the last few matches. When you think of Everton and Burnley and Brighton and all of those games where they go behind and maybe things don't go their way, it was important, I think, tonight to get that first goal and to get it. It's a rare first half goal for Liverpool, but to get it right in stoppage time as well was an important time, I think, in the match. So, yeah, it was a great finish. Probably the goalkeeper probably feel he could have done a little bit better with that shot. But, yeah, I think if you create 4 or 5 clear-cut chances like Liverpool did across the course of a match, you'd imagine that they can take at least one of those. Yeah,
certainly. Let's talk about the guy who comment on screen revolving around, Thiago Alcantara. Ian Doyle, our chief Liverpool writer, at halftime in his halftime player ratings, giving him a 4. He was on a booking and maybe lucky to only be on that come the halftime whistle. He didn't last the full 90, but it was, I suppose, for him, another irritating evening where we were maybe expecting a bit more, but struggled to maybe get up to the speed of the game.
Yeah, it was a strange one, wasn't it? There was a few fouls and a few different bits that he didn't quite do properly. There was a couple of moments, actually, where he played some really nice progressive balls into that final third, found Wijnaldum, I think, on one of them, which produced a chance. So you saw little glimpses of what he is capable of doing, but it goes back to the fouls and the yellow card and not really trusting him to get through the match without getting a second one. That's been a little bit of a problem. I think it's been slightly exaggerated, to be honest. I think that's only his 3rd yellow card since he's come into Liverpool. But it was one of those where Liverpool didn't really have a choice but to take him off the pitch before he got sent off, because it's only just one tackle that's slightly mistimed or whatever, and you can end up getting yourself sent off. So yeah, it really was not a good performance from him. There's a few misplaced passes and things like that, but looking at him long term, I think we will see the best of him at some point in the Liverpool shirt. It's been so difficult for him to get in, settle into the team, work out what they've been doing right. And I think there's still a lot of development for him tactically to get up to speed with the way that Liverpool play and that sort of thing. So look, the more he plays, and hopefully with a full pre-season, injury permitting, I know there's obviously the Euros to contend with as well, but you'd imagine that with injuries, Van Dijk behind him, players like that coming back in, a little bit more time on the training ground with Jurgen Klopp and Pep Lijnders and the rest of the staff, I think we will see the best version of him at some point, but it's not quite happened for him. And I think tonight was one of those really sort of poor performances from him. I don't think you can sort of argue with that, but he's not a long-term problem. Liverpool have won anyway tonight, so you can sort of let him off. 3 weeks away now until the next Liverpool game, and I'm sure we'll see much better things from him in the games to come.
Yeah, you mentioned the yellow card count. 4 yellow cards from his first 15 Premier League games. Duncan Alexander from Opta actually tweeting out during the first half saying that yellow cards in first 15 Premier League games, Thiago 4, Lee Catamol 3. So those who are veteran and seasoned Premier League watchers maybe remember Lee Catamol. I'm sure not many thought we'd be comparing he with Thiago Alcantara. In terms of Liverpool, though, you mentioned that penalty shout in the first few minutes and the fact that they did get the goal with the first shot on target, something we've not been seeing of late. Is tonight maybe an indication of Liverpool's luck changing?
Possibly. I think, for me, it goes back to Fabinho being in midfield. Liverpool looking a little bit more balanced. Again, it wasn't perfect, but it was a step up in performance. I think they did get away with it with that first penalty, but I think, if Sadio Mane is a little bit more clinical or maybe even a little bit more clever, I think first and foremost, he should just shoot and score. But then once he goes round the goalkeeper, is there a little touch there? Maybe he can go down, win a penalty. Things like that. I think Liverpool, the game could have had a lot more goals in it, I think, than what it did, given the chances that both teams had. And I think, maybe you can look at it and say, is it, Liverpool's luck changing? I think time will tell. You wonder, has the international break and the FA Cup weekend next weekend maybe come at the wrong time for Liverpool, just when they've possibly started to turn a corner, put a couple of decent results together? Maybe it's not quite come at the right time for them, but I suppose the other side of that argument is to think that possibly, a 3-week break just lets them reset a little bit. They know that they've obviously got the two decent results now in the bag, and they've got a couple of difficult games coming up. I think Arsenal, isn't it, the first one, then Aston Villa and Leeds to come. So it's not an easy couple of games there for them to get through. But I think, off the back of a little bit of a rest, I know a couple of the players will be going off for international duty and things like that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying the South American and African games have all been called off. So it'll only be the European players, I think, who are away on international duty. So there will still be a fair few of the key players for Liverpool who get a little bit of a break, bit of a rest, bit of time on the training pitch, and hopefully they can put together a run, because they're only 5 points off the top four now. A couple of results go your way, and suddenly you start to think maybe it's back on. I don't think it is quite for Liverpool just yet. I think a few more results have to go their way, but certainly an important 3 points, particularly after the rest of the results this weekend kind of went Liverpool's way.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there and took the fun away to end. I was going to say, with 9 games to go, 5 points, the gap, is it still doable? As you say, results within that chasing pack certainly going Liverpool's way. 19 days now without a game for Liverpool until a trip to the Emirates to come next. And as Matt quite rightly points out, Aston Villa and Leeds, the games after those through to the middle of April. But that's it from us here on this edition of the Debrief Live on the Blood Red channel. Stick with us for Jurgen Klopp's full post-match press conference. And don't forget, tomorrow the Blood Red podcast will be back with you on the dedicated YouTube channel and wherever it is you'll get your audio on demand. But from myself, Guy Clarke, and Matt Addison, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.